The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Friday.
Is it really?
Another day in paradise. The last day of the week.
The last day of the week. Well, first, got a couple of interesting stories that are, one we have here for our sheets. But the first one is Mylan has recalled the Epipens. I don't know how good that is or not, but they have indeed done it.
Yeah, the Epipen, whose price they jacked up through the ceiling, too.
Well, what I think is funny is that Mylan, who obviously came up with the Epipen, that gets 600 and change per dose, also came out with the generic at $100 and some odd $89 a dose. So you have to laugh. It's just an amazing situation.
Yeah. First, they tried to charge $300 for the generic, but then somebody, I guess, and we said it on the show, I reminded them that they were selling the brand name for like $100 in Canada. So,
yeah.
Well, but they're not making too much money.
No, but they're now the victim of a recall.
Yeah.
Mylan has announced that they are recalling their several things. They're recalling Atrovastin tablets, the generic version of Lipitor, over the potential for bacterial contamination. The recall tablets include strengths of medication received June 1 and April 6, June 1 of 2016 to April 6 of 2017. Mylan has also advised consumers of recall products to return to them and they'll be replaced immediately. The Epipens that are being recalled are lots 5GN767, 5GN773, 5GM631, 5GM640, 6GN215, 6GN082, 6GM072, 6GM081, 6GM088, 6GM199, 6GM091, 6GM198, and 6GM087. Those would be in the recall range from April 2017 to September 2017 and October of 2017. Those are the expiration dates. So they make enough money, and guess what? They got to recall all their products for bacterial infection, potential bacterial contamination.
Well, sometimes I when I see stuff like this, I wonder, because a lot of these pharmaceutical companies are beginning to bring in their drugs from other countries. And some of them are manufactured in India, China, and you always got to wonder now, because, the drug industry, they do two things. They make trillions of dollars, and they also don't care about anything except profit. So that's the two things they make. They make great profit, and profit is the altar at which they worship. So they don't worry about what the effects on people of cost, or now that when they're going out to China and India, where there's no quality control, no FDA inspections on a regular basis, if any. So that it always gives you cause for pause when you see stuff like this,
Well, it's always interesting, and I'm gonna give you a heads up on this one, because you're gonna love this lovely little scenario. And of course, we always have to make sure that people know what's coming up, and here it is.
Screw you, taxpayer!
That's gonna become our mantra.
Yeah.
If it hasn't already. The Housing Authority came to an agreement on those disciplinary actions yesterday. Mr. Farrell, I believe his name is, one of the people. They have not come to an arrangement yet with Mr. Astesio. But he's going to get a mere $142,000 to go away calmly, quietly, and not file further lawsuits against the lovely Fall River Housing Authority. I guess his Good Friday is pretty decent, and
it's
now
now
brought him a
called
big basket.
Yeah, it's now called Very Good Friday.
That's right. So again, they know that. I guess they know they're wrong, so they decided to pay him off.
Yeah,
to make
pay him and go away.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the city when they paid off DCM. They were going to lose the unfair labor practice, but let's just pay him off instead and pretend that we won because you paid him off. Paying somebody off to go away it doesn't mean you were right. It only means that you had enough money to pay him off. So, that's the craziness about these whole, all these issues. And while we're on a housing authority, I think we should mention to the taxpayers and stuff, because indirectly, even though it's a federal agency and stuff like that, but indirectly, they're also in our pension system, and the individual who's going to take over for the soon-to-be retired David Sullivan is getting a mere $100 a day as a stipend to take over the duties as an assistant, from assistant to director. So that's not a bad gig when you think about it. $100 a day, 5 days a week, it's not too bad.
$26,000 a year.
$26,000 a year, which, by the way, is more than the average individual income in the city of Fall River. So, not bad. He's going to have that tacked onto his salary, and, the moral of that story is, remember what that article I continue to bring up, and I got to dig it out of my attic someday if I can get up there. I can't climb up the stairs to the attic now yet. So I have that article that I always talk about, but you guys that like to do some research, you can go into the archives of the New Bedford Standard Times. It was 10 or 15 years ago, I guess, or 10 years ago or so, but they had an article on the Sunday Standard Times, and the headline was, "If you are an administrator, work in Fall River. If you're a worker, work in New Bedford," because they talked about how the administrative salaries in Fall River were much higher than the New Bedford administrative salaries, but the workers in Fall River got far less. So, again, here we see that when you're politically in or you're a political appointee, there is absolutely no worry about spending taxpayer money to give people stipends and huge pay raises and things like this. And yet, in the same motion, the mayor is now moving to eliminate the low-end jobs again, like he did with the matrons, by having the sheriff take over the jail. So they're going to boot a few low-paid people out, and they'll crow about how this is a cost savings measure, just like privatization was supposed to be a cost savings measure, even though we're paying more to truck it, more for getting rid of it than anybody else on the planet. So, when we remember that, we have to get that thing edited. We have to have a few other videos of "screw you, triple time taxpayer," because when you see stuff like this, it just reminds you how insensitive government is to what it does to the taxpayer, and we allow it by keeping these people in office and not demanding that our city council oversees the spending. You just can't continue to spend money. This is the new con they have is, and I remember them going before the council saying, listen, you have to understand, it's a fact of life that taxes have to go up every year. And who made up that story? Really? Do they have to go up every year? When the city had $12 million in surplus, the taxes didn't go up. And if they went up 2 years in a row, the mayor was out of office. But now they're trying to con everybody. Look, this is part of the thing. Well, those people's pays don't go up every year. And if they go up, they don't go up anywhere near what our budget goes up.
The Friends pays go up, though.
The Friends pays, yeah, exactly. And, it's just, I mean, it's ludicrous when you think of it, and you wonder why, you know, we always keep talking about follow the money. Well, we're following the money out of our wallet, right into the wallets of people, most of whom don't even live in this city, never spend a dime in this city, and do absolutely nothing except take money from this city.
And as Mark Dion said, RFP, revenue for Providence.
That's right.
Well, you know, the governor, Governor
Yeah.
Baker, is one of the most popular governors in the country. But he has a problem. It's called revenue shortfalls.
Yeah.
Millions of dollars. Faced with a $220 million revenue gap. I wonder if that $105,000 a year pay raise that all the state legislators took have anything to do with that. Excuse me, only the Democrats took. Remember, it's Democrats who get that money, not Republicans.
Yeah.
So talk about a disparity of pay raises, okay?
Yeah, and what does the governor do, the most popular governor? Again, he's popular, but nobody's paying attention because what did they do? I'm reading the article here, working on the edges of the budget to address the revenue shortfall. The working on the edges of a budget is political speak for we're going to threaten to get rid of all the programs that people need and want to make you not pay attention to the fact that there's nothing in here about our legislators foregoing their pay raises. There's nothing in here about any fat in our state budget. Nothing. They're not going to take away all the pay raises, all the stipends, all the lucrative contracts that they give to their friends. Nothing comes out of the pork barrel. The pork barrel gets porkier. and that's the truth. Yeah. But what are they going to eliminate? They're going to talk about, they'll talk about everything as they do. Look at the state. Fall River is a microcosm of politics. It's, you look at what goes on a federal level, on a state level, then we turn around to Fall River and you see where it goes in. Just like Fall River, they rape and pillage the taxpayer. They raise fees endlessly and taxes endlessly, and the budget goes up endlessly, yet they screw the city employees on health care, they screw the taxpayers on services, and then when somebody complains, they say, okay, we'll cut police and fire. They never take stipends away from anybody. They never take pay raises away from their friends. But the first thing they threaten is something that you need. So everybody goes, oh, no, we need public safety. That's right. We do need public safety. But what we don't need is our budget to increase every year and public safety really not being improved that much and the budget continually escalating. Example, the city healthcare budget in 2014, fiscal year 14, was $55 million. The projected budget this year is 51, and the city's whining about the cost of health care. Well, I asked the question at the meeting, too, and I said, how did we manage to afford $4 million more in 2014, and 4 fiscal years later, the budget has grown, I don't know, I'm going to have to do the research, and I will be doing that shortly. The budget has grown quite a bit since 2014. Pays have grown quite a bit since 2014. We had enough money to put away, $55 million. So obviously, it's about where the city's priorities are. The city's priorities are not to provide the health care that city employees negotiated and gave up pay raises for, cut corners and then steal the money. What happened to the $4 million that's missing from 2014? What happened to the $3 million a year that they get from the new co-pays that city employees have to pay? What's happened to all that money? It's gone. It went into that giant vacuum cleaner that they call the city budget. And where has it gone? It hasn't gone to health care, obviously, even though they complain about health care all the time. It's gone to pay raises. That's where it's gone. And it's gone to paying bills for things that don't really benefit the taxpayer. It sure as hell isn't going into fixing potholes. It sure as hell isn't going into anything that's going to really benefit the people of Fall River. I mean, some of these streets are so atrocious, it's incredible. And so, again, we have, it's up to us. We got an election coming up. The city council has a fiduciary responsibility to the citizens to make sure our money is being spent in our best interest. It is not in our best interest to give everybody giant pay raises that's politically connected. It's in our best interest to have public safety, education, and a better city for the people who pay for this city. Streets that you can drive in without losing a wheel. A place that's relatively clean and safe. So, I mean, when I look at stuff like this, when budget time comes, which is always, when we're approaching the new fiscal year, I always get a little crazy because it just reminds me of how ridiculous the government has become on all levels at spending money and not spending it in the best interests of the people. And if you remember right, it talks about having, our government is supposed to provide us with a safe environment, domestic tranquility, and what do? I mean, they give themselves just more money. You just keep throwing money after money and pay raises, and they want to give everybody they want everybody in Fall River that's an administrator to be paid like they work in Boston or New York City or San Francisco, but they want the employees to be paid like they work in Bangladesh. So, that's the reality. So,
I just find it amazing. That this is still going on. Today, this morning, as I was coming into the studio, across the parking lot, they're having their monthly food drive, and several people approached me and said, "Why don't you run for mayor?" And I said, "Because I don't want the headache." I said, "You put the people together, and then I'll consider putting my name on the ballot." I said, "But you know what? Why would anyone want me? I've run before. Nobody wants to hear the truth." And they said, "That's the problem. You're honest. You're the Donald Trump of Fall River." I said, "Hey, all right, now I'm getting complimented here. What's going on?"
Yeah, but you don't have a big bomb, though. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. I don't have Moab. You know what I mean?
Or a C-130 to drop it.
I know. So the other big thing coming up now in Fall River is the city's asking for $145,000 to build a band shell down at Heritage State Park.
Forgive me for laughing.
No, you do have to laugh. The state is going to give a matching grant to build it. I have some problems, though, with this. Number one, they're like, "Oh, great, we can have big concerts, and people aren't going to come to Fall River to do a concert." But you can't charge any money, and to charge money, you got to go through all these hoops. It doesn't make it worthwhile for anyone to promote it. Even in Boston, the concerts that are held there, they don't charge money for them. So we're going to build this big shell, lighting, sound equipment, everything else, and who's going to maintain it?
Well, CJ, here we go again with these delusionary ideas. It's like, there's an old adage that says a man has to know his limitations. Well, a city has to know its limitations too. You don't start with a clamshell or any kind of other shell or in his city for arts and culture. They wanted to have an arts and culture director now. Well, number one, first we got to get jobs, and we've got to get a population in here that actually works and has money to spend to promote businesses coming in, and then maybe people will come here that want to go to a concert, and it would make it viable. These things are not viable. You don't see, there's no theater in the round here. There's no theater by the sea here. These things are all phenomenal flops in Fall River because, let's face it, we have a population at 23% are living below the poverty level. We've got one of the highest drug addiction. What is it going to be? The shooting shell in between concerts? They can all go to the shell and
No, it's going to
shoot
become
up.
the shooting gallery.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, it's like, look, everybody says we're negative about Fall River. I'm not negative. I'm just realistic. This is not Newton.
I'm a pragmatist.
It is not Wellesley. It is not Boston. And even in Boston, do you think that Southie is a center of arts and culture? No. Boston's a city of 500,000 people. If you count the other outskirts, it's got a higher, but population-wise in the inner city. But in that area, you have people who are extremely, extremely affluent. You have a very large segment of people with money. And those people go to the plays. That's why you have theaters in Boston. That's why you have concerts in Boston. That's why you have things that are viable, because you have a demographic and a population that can support these things. They're a blue-collar town. They don't have a lot of this in Pittsburgh, which was a steel town. They don't have it in cities of our size that are fundamentally blue-collar. You can have some, but it's not the first thing you do. I mean, stop smoking or drinking whatever you're drinking. The planners in this city, and that book that was written about Pennsylvania said it all. It's not that we're being negative. I want to see Fall River improve, but I know a clamshell isn't going to improve life in Fall River. It's not going to change the complexion of Fall River. We got to take a little baby step and try to go back to when Fall River was a town that employed people, and people had a little bit of money, and we had stowers, and we had things. And we don't have those anymore because we can't support anything. So what are we going to do? Build a clamshell, and all the yuppies from the Back Bay in Boston are all going to run down to Fall River and buy a house on 4th and 5th Street? Is that what's going to happen? Come on, get your head out of your rectum, will you? Please. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. But another big thing that happened the past couple of days is a sober house got closed on John Street. And Linda, Councilor Pereira, has been running rampant trying to identify these places because they're not listed. The health department doesn't know about them. The building inspector doesn't know about them. We can't find permits. People are paying up to $500 a month to live in one room with a shared bath. So that program or that landlord is really making a killing.
Yeah, and can you imagine the outrage if we have a fire in there, we have a whole bunch of fatalities, and they find out, number one, no permits, not properly.
Well, that's why they closed it. The fire equipment, safety equipment wasn't operational. There was numerous violations of health and safety, so they had to close the building down. But this is what Fall River is. And most of our problems when it comes to neighborhoods and bad areas seems to be Corky Road. It is John Street. It is 5th Street. It is 4th Street. It's that general area. There's a lot of crime in that area. There's a lot of drugs.
And at the top of 2nd, too, the old gas company.
Right.
And I actually talked to a police officer last week who told me that area around Spring and 4th and 3rd and 2nd,
Yep.
That's become the highest crime area in the city of Fall River, and that's saying something because
Right.
it's like saying you're the most affluent neighborhood in Newton. Now that's something to say. To say it's the biggest, it's the highest crime area in Fall River. That means you got some serious crime going on.
Have we inadvertently or deliberately created the ghetto?
Well, you know, I think it's, yeah, I don't know if it's inadvertently, but I mean, you know, sociologically, that's what happens, because this is even, you know, Fall River is historically, you know, it's made to become a ghetto because, ironically, at its height, when we were one of the leading textile cities in the world, Fall River was a ghetto. Fall River, all the three deckers, the people who worked in the textile mills lived in squalor. They were ghettos. The only difference was they worked them 14 or 15 hours a day. They were ghettos without crime. It depends on your definition of ghettos, because people now, when they say ghetto, they immediately think crime and drug addiction. But, you know, poverty creates ghettos too. That's why they had the Warsaw Ghetto. There was no crime, and there was no drug addiction to speak of in these places. Poverty, and when immigrants first came over to this nation, we had Little Italy in New York City, and then we had Little Puerto Rico, and you know, because these people they work very low income jobs. They have to live, you know, with 20 people in a you know, 5 people, 10 people in a room, and you know, we've created this inadvertently, maybe, or maybe not inadvertently. But what's created this, and this is only my opinion, is the fact that we have no economy, because poor people have to live in squalor. They don't have any choice. It's not like they can go rent an apartment in a fancy place that's charging a high rent. They're forced by their economic situation to live in a room. I remember when I was on a department, once going into a building, we had a fire incident there, and they had 15 or 20 people, Cambodians. It was when the Cambodians first came to the United States, and they all had low-income jobs, but they had 15 or 20 of them sleeping in one room. The entire room was mattresses. They just walked into the room and went to sleep. Is it safe? No. Is it, you know, is it good for the public health? No. But the fact is, these things happen. And as you said, you know, it creates a lot of other problems outside of just the living conditions. And, you know, now with the opioids and the crime, it's a situation that, again, yells that we need to earmark our money for public safety, not pay raises.
You know, I made a commentary over at the public safety meeting on Wednesday. If you get a chance to view it, go to frgtv.us and watch the video on demand for the public safety meeting on Wednesday. I was stunned because a couple of people in the audience said, I can't follow that. He's right, and we can't say anything else. And of course, my Darwinism speech, you know, always gains a lot of traction. And, you know, the thing is that we as a society have to stop. We have to stop. And if we don't stop, we're the ones that are going to pay for it. And that's the problem. And we're allowing them to walk all over us. So, well, we only got a few seconds left before the music comes on. There will be no broadcast on Monday. It is Patriots Day. Today is Good Friday. I haven't seen the clouds roll in yet. But I want to thank you for watching as usual. And please, remember, stay angry. Have a happy Easter, everybody.
Yeah, and eat a lot of Easter candy.
Have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday. Bye-bye.